Everybody, welcome back to another Unconquered podcast film session. We're going to do a couple of run plays on this, and I'm experimenting a little bit with some different approaches here to use to do more individual plays and concepts so that we can see what's going on here rather than going through quarter by quarter. So let me know what you think of this, but basically what I want to do is I'm going to focus on Notre Dame's two long runs in the first quarter and look at what happened on those runs and then explore what Florida State can do better, which is, by the way, a lot, to stop those runs. So the first one here is this long run. I think it's by Chris Tyree. Doesn't really matter. By Notre Dame in this game. And there are a couple interesting things that are happening here before the snap. One is that Notre Dame has gone with an unbalanced formation. So there's a lot of interesting stuff here that they're doing formationally. Got to give Tommy Rees some credit for some creative stuff. He is ineligible. So if you notice, you've got an end man on the line of scrimmage here who is the eligible receiver here. He is actually covered up, so he's ineligible, so that's why there's nobody there covering him. And it does appear that Florida State identified this well. So you have to give him credit for doing that, because the only two people that you have to cover here are the end man on the line of scrimmage and then the slot here, and then you've got the H-back here. Now, the reason that they're doing this, what they're trying to do, is they're trying to get Florida State to overweight the field side. They know Florida State tends to be a boundary field team in terms of their front, but they know that they're going to be able to get them matched up on this side as they want. So here's the thing. Florida State does give them more or less what they want by essentially only having two players to the boundary side other than the down lineman. So you've got four players only. If you draw a line down the hash and the ball is on the hash, if you draw a line down the hash, you only have four players on this side of things. And what they're going to do is they're going to run a split zone where everybody is going to be stepping to the right, but this is designed to be a cutback run. So what you're going to have is step to the right, 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 and so they're going to blitz, or they're going to block that way, and then they're going to have the H-back come this way to kick out the end man on the line of scrimmage. So you don't block Janarius Robinson here. You let him go, and you basically are going to block the end man. Now, interestingly, they blow this just a little bit, but it doesn't matter. So what Florida State is doing actually is they're bringing pressure off of the edge here. And so that's going to lead to a stunt to the inside by Janarius Robinson here. So essentially what you're going to have is he's going to be in the B gap. Marvin Wilson is going to slant to the A gap. You're going to have this side is going to be A gap here, B gap here, and then you're going to have a responsibility for the C gap here, and then the rest is all support. And so what you actually have, Florida State should be taken care of here to the edge because they've got this going on. C gap is taken care of. And then you have the extra player. Your free player is right here. He's the guy that you expect to make the tackle if anything comes to this side, because gap is covered, gap is covered, gap is covered. If anything leaks through, then he's your free guy. They should have to block everybody here just to be able to get things done. Now, what Florida State is also doing is they have Jaden Lars-Woodby in man-to-man coverage against the H-back. So when the H-back comes across the formation, Lars-Woodby is also going to come across the formation this way. So that allows them to maintain the +1. Schematically, this is sound from Florida State. So this is what you want to see. Now, unfortunately, let's go ahead and look at it, and I'm gonna reduce the speed here for the playback. There's a way to do that. Let's see. All right, so reduce the speed here. That's not going to work. I'm just going to control it this way. So when you see this, this is what happens. they have players in position. Now, they don't block Janarius Robinson, as I mentioned, because they're trying. The objective here in the split zone, the edge guy is not going to block him. The edge guy is working his way up to the backer. That's what he's trying to get to. And they're going to allow Janarius Robinson to come up the field. And normally, you're going to kick that guy out with your H-back. The H-back actually misses him. This is a blown assignment by the H-back. The H-back here is trying to work his way to block the edge, and he notices that there's an additional guy on the edge because they're bringing the blitz here. So they're getting that. So he actually goes to block the new end man on the line of scrimmage when he actually should be kicking this guy out. And because this, you can run inside of this blitz. It basically hits it in the teeth. So Asante Samuel ends up being the one that he blocks. And because Janarius Robinson is completely unblocked here, he has a free path to the running back and should be basically just standing there to make a tackle for loss. So this is where things are lost here for Florida State, is right there. You see Janarius is in position to make the tackle, but here's the problem is, look at him duck his head. He's trying to take on, initially you see that he's used to taking on split zone. He recognizes the step inside, which is fine, and he jumps inside the way that you want. Basically, the way that you coach this for the defensive end is when you see the step inside from the tackle, you have to match that step and sort of work off of his hip, keep inside. And a lot of times you actually want to kind of push his hip a little bit, but you work off his hip to close down that space. So you want to be right in here. And then if they try to kick you out, the standard way to do this, the normal way, is to do what's called to box it. So you just meet pressure with pressure, and you're basically trying to box the running back in so that there's not much space to work with, and you're letting your backer respond inside you. Well, the problem is that as he comes forward, he's expecting the H-back to do his thing and hit him, and he braces, he ducks his head to try to take on that contact, and the H-back just slips him and says, no, I'm going to block the other edge guy, and Janarius is so out of control here that he actually just flat out whiffs on the running back. You can see he's initially trying to get contact, and now he's trying to get a tackle, and he just waves at him, and now things are in really bad shape. So the guy that should make the tackle here in the backfield just whiffs because of terrible technique. And I also want to observe, just physically here, not only is this bad technique to duck your head like this, and this is why he gets called for targeting, is because he ducks his head, but this is also reflective of being really stiff in the lower half right here. This reflects a problem in terms of training over the last few years, where he has not developed the requisite hip flexibility to be able to drop his hips and have low hips. You hear low man wins, but it's not about having your shoulders low. If your hips are high and your shoulders are low, you're just going to get out of control, you're going to get top heavy, or you're just going to get ground up by anybody else who's able to anchor their hips. What you want is, you'll see here from Notre Dame's offensive lineman, look at how he's loaded up with his hips underneath him here. That's what you want, is you want your hips loaded up, and it's low hips that win. Well, he ducks his head. Hips are really high. He hasn't actually loaded up the power through the hips and through the quads to deliver a blow, and he just ends up waving by. So that's also a reflection of just not being physically prepared due to, I think, inadequacies in Florida State's training the last few years. And this is not a matter of Josh Storms. They didn't have any time with these guys. I mean, the weight room was closed over the offseason in that regard. But this does suggest something about where he's at based on the last few years. The other thing that you see here is you're going to see, as the tackle comes up to block the backer actually, and this is Emmett Rice, the backer recognizes the play, but he doesn't take on the blocker. He tries to run around it. He tries to shed and run around it and just gets pancaked as a result. The job of the backer here is to recognize this is inside zone. Where's the gap? Where's the gap? Locate the gap and then fill it with contact. So you have to meet pressure with pressure. You can't try to dance around it. He needs to be putting his shoulder, you dip your hips, lift up underneath, and put your shoulder under here again to compress the space. And you combine that then with Lars Woodby, who is doing his job. You have the split zone here. Lars Woodby's job is to follow that across just in case this is a slip, right? So if you get a slip there, it's Lars Woodby who's in man coverage here to protect that from being a big play. So he's doing his job, but that also means that as he runs this way, we'll go ahead and eliminate that. As he runs that way, he's still working toward the H-back because it still might be a slip. He's coming here, and now you have a seam that has developed inside. One last thing to talk about where Florida State, and so far they've lost every matchup they should have here. One other place where they really lose is Marvin Wilson here at the 3 technique. It's the 3 technique's job more often than not to blow up the inside zone. You've got to be able to win at the 3 technique to stop the split zone. So as Marvin Wilson comes, he's slanting inside to that A gap. So his gap is right here. That's fine, but watch how far down the line of scrimmage he gets washed. That's about 5 yards down the line of scrimmage that he just gets washed. And we'll look at it from the other angle in just a second. But that also opens up a major seam. He should be, and we'll go ahead and let's look at the other angle. Thank you, Tony Dungy. So as we see the other angle, and this looks bad from here too. So this is okay. This is right where you want Janarius Robinson. Right here. That's good. But right here, you see how he ducks his head? He's getting ready to target. That's just really, really bad technique. He can't see where he's tackling. His hips are high. That's bad. So you see him just run right by. This is okay from Asante. Asante Samuel here, he's got the quarterback, and he's in position to take the quarterback. That's good. But if you notice here, you've got a little bit of a runaround in this spot. But the real issue here that opens up the big hole is right here, Marvin Wilson. If Wilson, what he's supposed to do, he's supposed to be taking this gap. And if he feels the pressure if he feels the step this direction on the zone, then what he has to do is he's got to get in this gap. So that's initial movement has to be quick enough to make sure that he's in the proper gap. But as soon as he feels that pressure from the offensive lineman who wants to take him this way, he has to maintain the inside shoulder being free to cover that gap as much as possible. But he needs that second step to be pressed back into. You want him to be here and then press back into. The pressure needs to be back into the offensive lineman so that as he's protecting this gap, he doesn't just get reset so that the gap gets moved down the line of scrimmage this way. You don't want him over here, which is where he ends up. You want him to reset the line of scrimmage and maintain a hard shoulder up against that offensive lineman and be physical enough to keep the offensive lineman from washing him any further than the hash. He doesn't want to get any further than the hash. That's what you're coaching here. Now watch. That's where he should be stopped. But his initial movement, the offensive lineman gets his second step down before Marvin Wilson does, which is bad. That means he's not off the ball quick enough. And then as he's working, you see him trying to make sure he's covering his gap. But the problem is, as he's covering that gap, he's allowing himself to get turned and pinned. And now he's already a yard out of position. Now he's 2 yards out of position. Now he's 3 yards out of position. And look at the size of that hole because of Marvin Wilson not keeping pressure. He's trying to see here. He's trying to see into the backfield, and he's not pushing enough. And this is just, you've got to get more. A good example of what you want actually is from Kendo here, who's coming. He has the advantage of leverage coming from outside. But watch how Kendo is pressing up against the pressure. He doesn't actually get moved. So that's what you want. But it's hard to do when you're already moving this direction, but you need that second step, that second or third step, depending on how your footwork's going to work here, to be pressing back to prevent this from washing down the line of scrimmage. It gets washed, and now you have that. And if Renardo Green weren't really, really fast, and you can see the speed here, this would have been a touchdown. That's really good speed from Renardo Green. So ultimately also from Amari Gaynor, who manages to catch up to that. So that's just bad run defense across the board against the split zone by Florida State. We're going to move to another play. Actually, why don't we look at the mesh play here just as another example. It's not a run play, but we'll look at how they're doing that. And this, by the way, is this is same inside zone. And see, that's much better by Marvin Wilson holding up here. He doesn't get washed so much, and that allows the linebacker to fill in a smaller space. So that's fine. Still washed a little more than I'd like, but now what we're going to see, this is the play they scored on. And yeah, I know this is not the run play, but it's worth just adding to the video. So all they're going to do, this is going to be, and I got to remember who the meshers are. Yeah, so what they're going to do, they're going to mesh here across. He's going to be the picker, and he's going to be, they run this the pro style where they're designating one guy to basically be the pick guy and one guy that's going to come underneath to be the receiver who's going to run through. And if it's zone coverage, then a lot of times you come to this guy because there ends up being a hole in the zone, and this is going to run into somebody out here. If it's man coverage, then you end up throwing to this guy because he's the one that's running away from the man coverage. And they're adding to that. Anytime you have a mesh, you're almost always going to have a dig route. So you're going to have that, and then you're going to have a wheel route right here that's going to be run up against, let's draw that a little bit better, a wheel route that's run up against Lars Woodby in man coverage. So this is pretty simple. You'll see what's going on here. Let's go ahead and get that off the screen. There we go. And so all they're doing, he's running at the Mike backer, trying to create conflict and trying to cause a collision here. And that's a good job not causing a collision, but just being there enough to force him out of his path. And then Emmett Rice is in man coverage. So basically this is robber or rat coverage. This is your robber. He's got basically he's spying the quarterback, and he's also got anything intermediate over the middle here. And basically you're playing outside leverage man, and you're trying to force things into here. Well, there are a couple things that go wrong here. One is, as he recognizes mesh, this is good, he recognizes it. What he needs to do is step forward and make contact on the wide receiver. You're inside this space, which is fine, but you can make if you don't hold, you can knock this receiver down. And that's really what I'd like to see from the Mike backer here. Step forward and don't grab. Just go ahead and do, what Roy Williams back in Oklahoma days used to just, in these kind of contexts, would just step forward and make contact and knock a guy off his route. If you're going to do that, that's fine, but you better get a hold of him. What you can't do is what he just did, which is step up into the path of the guy that's trailing, slows him down, and then not only do you not get any sort of coverage or any good contact on the player, you actually interfere with your own coverage player, Emmett Rice, who then is out of position to make the play. Now, there are a couple other things here. This is a good technique by Asante Samuel and Green. They take away the dig. That's what you want. This is not good by Lars Woodby on the wheel. He's got to stay a little higher on the hip. I think that's touchdown. If the quarterback throws here toward the back of the end zone, that's also a touchdown. So they had their pick here. It's not good. All right, let's move to the other run play. Okay, here we are again. This is the second long run in the first quarter by Florida State or by Notre Dame against the Florida State defense. FSU's been hanging with them so far, but this is a backbreaking run here. This is from the 44-yard line here on the FSU side. And they're in a 2x2, but they're doing it with, again, a bigger package. And I like a lot of what Notre Dame's doing offensively. You got your 2 tight ends here, where you're able to, again, basically nub to the boundary. And then they're going to work a little bit of this jet action across the field to cause some issues with the defense in terms of adjustment to formation. And that also tells them what they've got in terms of coverage. So what you're seeing here, you're seeing Renardo Green run across the formation along with that. If you're the quarterback and this is a pass concept, this is man coverage because he's running across and they're not just bumping guys. So you've got man coverage. That's one of the benefits of this kind of motion. So beyond that, that also tells you can probably expect a blitz. Now, this is not an inside zone. This is a different kind of play. So what they're going to do here is this is a counter tray. A counter tray is just basically power where the puller, the jobs of the 2 pullers are inverted compared to power. So you see people kind of interchangeably refer to them. But basically, what you've got here is you're going to have the guard is going to pull this way, and he's got kick out. And then you're going to come with the H-back, and he's going to lead up into the hole. Whereas with power, you're going to get the inverse. And the back is going to show a little bit of counter action. He's going to step and then come right there. That's where this is designed to go. So against this, and what this is doing is this is allowing the offensive line, once again, you're getting angles. What you're trying to do is, ordinarily, you're not going to even block this end man unless he stunts inside. If he slants inside, then you'll take him. Otherwise, this guy is coming up. You're going to combo block your one technique up into the backer, or you might even get a free release up into the backer if you combo this way. But basically, if you get a stunt, if you get any sort of pressure in here, you go ahead and take that, and then that's going to be the kick out for the guard. And what you're trying to do is produce a seam here. That's what FSU's trying to prevent. So here's what you see. Oh, and by the way, the other benefit of this motion is your additional support player for the offense is removed from the equation. He's the additional support player over here. If you've got, if he's in the slot here, if he's moving this way, he's moving the opposite direction. So he's taken out of the run fit. And I suspect, actually, against this motion, you probably should have a little bump here. And I need to actually look that up in terms of how Fuller does it in his front. But what they've got is they've got a blitz on, so you're going to have inside, up the field, one technique. So B gap, A gap, C gap responsibilities, and then your freebie, your free guy, the guy that you're trying to make sure is going to be there for any cleanup is right there. It's a hitman scheme, as Jimmy Johnson used to call it. So he's your hitman. So here's what you see. Everybody steps down except for the puller. And now the way that this works is he's going to have the A gap. Your hitman is going to have the A gap on this side until the puller does this. When the puller does that, he has to move his gap, and now he's going to have the gap inside the kick out here. So if the guard pulls up the field, he has the inside shoulder of the guard basically. So his gap just or outside shoulder, that is. He has the gap basically that moves with the guard when he pulls. The same thing is going to happen here as he pulls. The guy responsible for him and man coverage is going to come across the field. And I think that's Lars Woodby. I haven't looked closely enough yet. So now what we've got is we've got the blitz off the edge. Once again, this is actually a pretty good situation for Florida State. If Lundy plays this right, I think that's Lundy, 46. If the outside backer plays this right, the blitzer plays this right, then he's going to, as he sees the step inside, he's going to be able to meet the kick out and box this play in. That's what you want. You're playing box technique here. So maintain the free outside shoulder and then meet the pressure and compress the places that the back has to go, so that if the back is going to have to bounce outside, he's got to bounce to where your free shoulder is. You can get a hand on him. If he's going to have to be inside, all of this stuff, let's get moving forward a little bit. All of this stuff, if you do this right, if Lundy does this right, he should be coming straight down the line of scrimmage here. Don't get sucked into the action here. He has to meet the puller right there. And if he does that, look at how compressed this is. So if he's able to just hit hard and meet the puller right here, then when the back gets the football, he's really got no options to this side, because he can't. Let's go one frame forward. The back won't be able to come this way because he's got his outside shoulder free, and he's not going to be able to come inside because everything's just so compressed. If he just meets, what you want is you want the backer to put his shoulder pad basically right here, this inside shoulder right here, and compress this so that all of a sudden you've got all the gaps covered on this side. And from there, really the only option that the back is going to have is to cut this back. And this is not designed as a cutback run. He wants to come here. He's going to have to cut this back right into the defensive lineman here. And you've got an additional support player. You've got an additional support player here. You've got plenty of support here to take care of that. So that's error number one, is right there. You're not getting enough pressure against the puller here. And then the other problem is, as the backer has been working his way, he should be scraping along the line, instead of stepping forward so quickly, scrape this direction with the puller. And then as soon as you recognize where that gap's going to be, you insert hard. Fill that gap. Instead, he steps forward too quickly, right into where he doesn't have that gap responsibility. He steps forward, gets caught in the trash, and because we see this guy go too wide here, right? So now he's too wide. So now the back is able to slip to the inside of that. He's a non-factor now. And because he's stuck in the trash here, and now there's a puller coming through, you're going to have a lead blocker who's going to be able to seal, and a back who's going to be able to hit that seam. Really simple. So let's let it roll. See that? And the lead blocker doesn't even have to take him. You see, he's looking for him. He knows that this guy has to be here. He's looking for him. And Florida State's run defense right now, their run fits are so bad at times that the guy that's supposed to block the guy who's supposed to be in that hole is startled that there's just no one there. And that's a freshman thing, yes, but you've also got, this is just basic technique. He needs to be inserting there. Bam. If you close that there, insert there, the back is basically stuck. You're going to get the lead is going to be here, and it's going to look all compressed, and then he's going to try to find something, and this is, again, in position to be a loss. This is good scheme, folks. This is plenty good, but you can't win when you've got guys that are out of their gaps, and essentially you have two guys that don't do their jobs here. Both backers don't do their jobs, and the result is that. And the thing is, they're not fast enough. In the past, let's imagine Telvin Smith is in this position. Telvin Smith might have enough speed to make this tackle. And okay, so they instead of getting a tackle for a loss, which this should have been, you wind up with, a 6-7 yard gain. But Florida State's personnel is just not fast enough not even close to fast enough to address this problem. They just get run away from. And guys, that's what's wrong with the Florida State run defense right now. It's just a matter of not fitting. And once again, we'll see this. Thanks, Tony Dungy, for the arrow. See how big that gets when you get a run around here? And this is why it's not so simple as just to play the young backers, because the two young backers are who gave this play up. You know, you should see a backer appearing, scraping, and then insert right here. Bam. And this should be closed down. And the only option he should have is to go right here where you have a player and you have another player. You got two players for here. That's fine. But the two players that are responsible for this didn't do their jobs, and you're going to wind up with some ugly long runs. Just because, again, the young backers didn't do their job. So this stuff's got to get cleaned up because North Carolina is really good, and their running backs are better than Notre Dame's, and their offensive line is dang near as good. So this stuff doesn't get cleaned up, they're going to have the same problems this week.